Welcome. So, we are going to be showing off Leton. It's going to be a little weird in this stage because we're going to be dealing with a lot of enemies. But it'll be alright. Most of the team's just going to be sitting this out. Going to be doing a lot of this with just Leton. Sign's going to handle this one group just so he can get over to where everybody else is chilling. There's the frostbite, counterattack, and he's frozen.
오, 템포 좋은데.
So Leton's gonna hold this north bridge. I'm just gonna show how ridiculously durable this build is.
내가 있으니 걱정 마.
이동할게요. 이제 아프지 말아요.
And once you have enemies frozen like that, then at this point you use your long range characters. Hard to see the attack is. Right here, yep.
알았어. 충분해. 맡겨줘.
If you have your long range characters synced with Leton, specifically look for finding a way out, because that will allow you to give Leton his turns back quicker, because you'll kill the enemies next to him, and then he just gets his turn. Now you can see here Leton did take some damage, so he lost some health and some vigor, but the nice thing with this build is every time you cast an ice spell, which is going to be most of what you're doing,
그렇게 내 공연이 보고 싶냐?
go ahead and warm up. That resets your cooldown, so we can do Ice Spear again.
Good.
We're going to run up on the bridge, and yep, we can get 3 enemies there. And 1 Ice Spear.
알았어. 당신의 저항도 여기까지. 진작 포기했으면 좋잖아. 당신의 저항도 여기까지.
Giselle's a great candidate for backing up Leton, but I have her sitting this one out. She's on the far north, and I'm not moving her anywhere.
자,
Scion, who I did my last video there, you can see he's just chilling. Taking on clowns all by himself. You know, the usual things that he does.
내리쳐라. 이젠 나도 날 못 말려.
이제 아프지 말아요.
이제 지루하니까 만 끝내자.
Fortunately, this stage, because it's a story mission, does not let me exit or eject players or the party members.
알았어. 잘 가라, 친구들. 적이라도 최선을 다하는 모습이 보기 좋아.
부탁해. 내가 먼저 간다. 당신의 저항도 여기까지야. 더러워졌잖아. 이젠 그만하자.
목표로 이동하겠다. 빙고! 이 감각 계속되면 좋겠는데. 섬광난! 우와! 훨씬 강하잖아.
퀵실빙! 아, 이거 너무 시시하잖아.
Well, let's get Ann up to support Leton. So one of the weaknesses of this Leton build is that the Vigor Drain is actually pretty intensive. We do control it a bit, but it's still a lot. Oh, and let's took some damage. Oof, alright.
Okay.
Fortunately, there's no one single choke point, so the rest of the team's gonna have to take these other guys out.
내가 못 맞출 줄 알고? 지겨우니 다 함께 더.
I got enough range artillery back here, we should be fine.
걱정하지 마. 나 혼자서
아,
Leton's gonna hold the bridge here.
아, 어때?
Freezing
환상적이지?
everybody. Just making meat popsicles. Let's have Irene hold this bridge so I don't get flanked.
엔, 이동할게요.
So here should be a good spot. So yeah, you can see Leton's used up some vigor. He's got some ways to deal with it though, and I'll showcase that in the build when I get to the gear and mastery setup.
이제 아프지 말아요.
Pop the heal into him.
이런 건
Like I said,
적당히
these
맞지
three are just
않아.
gonna sit this out.
그렇지. 좋았어. 오호호. 우리 팀에 올 생각 없어? 방출 준비 완료. 여기
I
맞지?
don't like these
이제
things.
지루하니까 그만 끝내자. 바로 이거지.
후회해도 이미 늦었어. 내가 너희들을 응징하겠다.
너무 긴장하지 않아도 돼. 다 같이 힘을 쳐볼까? 기껏 달아올랐는데.
이제 아프지 말아요.
If you can get a setup like this where you got Leton covering a choke point and Ann can just sit back and support him, then yeah, he's basically good to go. The other thing with this setup is we have 90 antifreeze fluid, so you basically have no risk of ever running out. Every time you use one, which is when you cast your ice spells, he'll recover 10% of his max HP and 10% of his vigor. And because he's recovering HP, he'll also get an additional 10 vigor from enough rest. Unless he's full, then he only gets portion 4, I believe. But yeah, we're just gonna make meat popsicles all over the place.
좋은 동작이었어. 칭찬해줄게.
Again, once you've got a nice choke point there and you're freezing everything, then just have all your range characters, just go ahead and pop them.
자, 다음은 누가 도전하나?
While they're frozen, they have no block, they have no dodge. You can still miss if your accuracy is low, but shouldn't
빗나가지
happen too
않는다.
much. Well,
장난하자는
shouldn't
거야?
happen in game, but let's go and delete some popsicles.
즐거운 시간. 오. K 내리쳐라 KO.
이젠 아프지 말아요. 잘 부탁해. 용서하지 않겠다. 널 위한 심판이다.
Then white clowns are coming in.
오, 훌륭하군.
See here, Leton's got like 4 enemies frozen. Every time they get a turn, even when they're frozen, they're actually gonna give Leton his action time back.
같이 다니고 싶지 않은
Because we're running a
우리
quick
팀에 올
grasp of the
생각 없어?
situation.
지체할 시간이 없습니다.
후회해도 이미 늦었어. 안 풀리네.
내가 먼저다. 퍼져라. 그냥 좀 맞아주면 안 돼?
히어로 아이린, 이날을 위해 수련했다.
Technically moved, so no, I'm sticking to my promise. I said those 3 are gonna
정의를
stay out of this. Just leave them be.
숨어도 소용없어. 히어로는 패배하지 않는다.
알라리, 너 내 팬이구나. 야, 예.
내 딸이 최종 5위. 흉폭한 내 딸. 다음은 누구냐?
지긋지긋한 순간을 끝낼 시간이야. 이제 망설이지.
Enemies frozen up here. And I can't reach any of them.
용서하지 않겠어. 후회할 일은 하지 마.
가슴이 떨려 죽겠어요. 제가 지켜드려요.
Yeah, Leton really doesn't care how many enemies are coming onto that bridge. They're not getting to anybody behind him.
말려.
내가 먼저 간다. 당신의 저항도 여기까지. 무슨이 하나도 기쁘지 않네. 너의 칼날은 나에게 닿지 않아. 후회해도 이미 늦었어. 야단이. 이제 아프지 말아요.
I'm ready.
Jump over
Ready,
here.
start.
Oh, usually it's a good idea not to ult because you actually get a ton of damage reduction from his SP. Yeah, 600 damage reduction when he's hit, which helps to trigger the Great Snow Mountain, which means every time that Leton's attacked for less than 5% of his max HP, he gains a some action time reduction. But we're just gonna go ahead and do this, get some damage in, freeze some dudes. just doing Leton things, and because we killed enemies that were frozen, we actually get an action point back. So if you do want to actually take some enemies out, you actually do have that option. So I got this guy, get an action point back again.
미안. 당신의 역할은 여기까지야. 오, 템포 좋은데.
용서하지 않겠다. 나쁜 녀석들
무방사파.
태워주마.
섬광랑. 이거 너무하잖아.
신속히 이동한다. 포기하면 편해. 훌륭해.
내 총구가 가리키는 방향이다. 인고. 오, 괜찮은 녀석이다.
There we go. Ice Bolt, which frostbites, and then counter into freeze.
좋은 동작이었어.
내가 모두
칭찬해줄게.
용서하지 않겠다.
First enemy that makes the mistake of running up to Leton is basically gonna have a bad day.
악당 물리쳤다.
Enemies after that, though, not so much.
퀵 쉐이빙. 평소에 도대체 왜 그러니? 더 덤벼. 그래, 내가 갈게. 난 하고 싶은 거 꼭 해낸다고. 이런 내 실수.
더 이상 약해지지 않을 거예요. 이제 아프지
But
말아요.
yeah, this build's pretty good tank. Damage is not the best. If you do get low on vigor, you are able to just stand by and actually get some vigor back. You actually recover 20 vigor for standing by. And you're only consuming 10 to keep the ice armor up, so you can basically just do that and not run out of SP or SP out of vigor.
이제 지루하니까 그만 끝내자. 항복하시지.
I think almost all the enemies are gone now. I think we're close to done.
당신의 저항도 여기까지. 역시
One other dude.
이제 아프지 말아요.
And everyone else got to stay back. Other than our frontliners, I don't think any of our backline took any damage the whole time we were
좋은
here.
선택이다. 빗나가지 않는다. 발버둥이라도 치라고.
Yeah, 26 minutes, not the longest or the worst. This kind of shows a case where Leton was. So he only took 16,000 damage. So he took 8 hits, 2 dodges, blocked the other 6. So yeah, basically 100% block and dodge rate combined when you combine the two. So he either blocked or dodged. So he's really good at mitigating damage. And yeah, I got 24 attacks off. He was able to freeze a whole bunch of enemies, as you saw. And yeah, he's just really great for holding a choke point, holding the front line. So yeah, that's how I use Leton. There's some more degenerate playstyles to use with them, but just wanted to showcase that. And we did have several of the members sit the entire fight out, and you can see even with some of the characters that were fighting earlier the full time, like Scion, Irene, Ray, who jumped in pretty quick, Leton still did actually pretty respectable damage, all things considered. He did only kill 3 enemies, but that's fine. His main job was to hold that choke point and made sure nobody comes in from that north side. And he completely did his job. Alright, let's show this Leton build. So, the way this is set up, there's a couple ways you can alter this build, but this is what I'm currently running. So, the Black Iron Flash Boots are really good for this setup. You're able to get speed, move distance. Preferably, you don't want that Vigor as the extra stat roll. Preferably you want additional speed or move distance just so you have quicker turns, or you can get into the fight quicker with move distance. Speed is probably the better of the two, but you have the option. 2 move distance and 10 speed on the boots is really good, so I would recommend getting a pair of those. For your accessory slot, the Dawn Wrist Guard is really good. It gives you hit chance and speed while having good defensive stats. The hit chance is important. We do want to make sure that we are hitting and landing either our first elements, our counterattacks, and of course the freeze, which is a distance attack, so the accuracy isn't as high as other skills. Skull uniform. This is actually not particularly good. A better piece would be the Ascending Dragon Tattoo. I just don't have one with a good accuracy roll and speed on it, preferably. One like this, but I want the extra accuracy and probably a better speed roll, just so we don't lose as much speed compared to the current Skull uniform. And it just gives you better block versus ranged attacks, which is something that martial artists does kind of struggle a little bit with. But Leton doesn't have exactly that problem because Frost Armor will give you 100% block, in addition to having nearly 50% block just out the gate. So we're rocking like 150 block rate as it is. So unless an enemy's got breakthrough, they're not really getting through your block. And then for weapon, you got a couple choices here. I do like running this Black Iron Frostbank glove. It does give you an extra 200 HP, does have a little extra hit chance, some additional block. So if an enemy does have block shred, you're less likely to get popped by it. And the other thing is it allows him to apply armor break on melee attacks. So all those forestallments, counterattacks, if you decide to run up and just body blow someone instead of throwing an ice shard at them, you're actually applying some armor breaks, which does help your backliners do more damage, and it lowers the enemy's block and dodge rate each time you do that. So I do like running that. Other options that you could run a Bangle just to get some additional vigor recovery, like Cheech's is really good. It gives you some bonus accuracy as well, because you can get an ice attack hit chance, so that way you're more likely to land those ice arrows and ice spears. And it gives you some higher speed as well. You do lose out on some of the HP, and you also no longer apply the armor break. So you kind of have to pick and choose on what you want from that. Another thing you could potentially run is the Troll, the Reckless Troll Gloves here. So the thing with these is that when you do those forestallments and counterattacks, you're also applying 20 action time, and then Body Blow itself also applies 40 action time, so now you're applying 60 action time if an enemy decides it's a good idea to attack you, which, if If you position Leton right, sometimes the enemy just doesn't have a choice. They have to go through Leton, so they're going to have to take those action time reductions. Onto the mastery board. Last thing was the Drakey Perfect Scale. This, of course, is pretty much mandatory if you're running any kind of frost armor or magic armor effect, because you are permanently exposed. This basically mitigates that weakness. Also allows you to dodge some responsive attacks. And then for the individual mastery, we went with the high-end antifreeze fluid. The reason I suggest this over Acrobat for this build specifically is that we don't want to get silenced because we want to be able to freeze enemies and so on. So what this does is that if you have any debuffs at the start of your turn, the debuffs are cleared. So this is actually better than Mutant. And it only costs you 5 SP, which Leton should be getting a ton of SP, because every time he's attacked and blocks, he gets additional, or he gets 10 Ice SP, just for being attacked once. So you shouldn't have any trouble getting a ton of SP on Leton, as long as enough enemies are attacking him. And then any kind of bleeds, or poison, or silence, anything that they put on you, as soon as your turn starts, it gets cleared. So you never have to deal with any of the status effects. And it doesn't actually consume any of your anti-freezing fluids. If you run out of the fluids, this effect will stop working, but it doesn't actually consume the antifreeze fluids to perform the effect. So you're just getting those status effects removed for free. And because you have 90 anti-freezing fluid stacks, you basically won't run out. It'd be really, really hard to actually consume all 90. Onto the masteries. The way this is set up, the anti-freezing side effect. I don't actually see a lot of people use this, and I'm actually going to recommend it with this setup for a couple reasons. We want Leton to be somewhat independent. We don't want him to be too reliant on having Anne. If Anne can, throw a heal on him before he runs into the battle so he has a regen going is a good idea. But we want him to be able to hold his own without having to put Anne running up to heal him and being at risk of enemies attacking. If you get a good choke point though, then Anne can run up and be safe still. But if you're dealing with stuff like Destrons or any kind of snipers that can reach Anne, you want to keep Anne far away from that. So what this does is, anytime you consume your anti-freezing fluids, which is anytime you cast your ice skills, you're going to recover 10% HP. By recovering 10% HP, you're going to trigger enough rest. By triggering enough rest, you're going to recover some vigor. Additionally, when you do Inner Peace, when you consume the anti-freezing fluid, Inner Peace will trigger and you'll also recover 10% of your vigor. We have 130 vigor, so that's 13 vigor. We're also getting the effect of enough rest as well, which is 10 for the heal, or 4 if you're already at full HP. So we're either recovering 17 to 23 vigor per turn. So that mostly covers a lot of your skill casting, so you'll actually be pretty vigor self-dependent. If you run the Bangle version of this with Cheech Bangle and you have the extra vigor recovery, you can actually just about sustain your vigor without too much hassle. And with the HP recovery, you basically are able to self-heal yourself. So as long as you can make sure the enemies aren't doing too much damage, which, well, frozen enemies really don't do damage to you. We're not at risk of bleed or any kind of damage ticks going off because the high-end anti-freezing fluid. So we shouldn't be taking all that much damage. As you saw there, despite all the enemies he held at that choke point, he only took 1500 damage, which is just 5 cast of Ice Arrow to basically heal himself back up. We run Frostbolt, so this basically whenever we trigger Frostbolt, we'll apply Frostbite. This Frostbite does not get upgraded to freezing from absolute 0. This applies to your ice attack abilities. This Ice Bolt is not a part of your ability, it's just an add-on damage, so the add-on effect is just plain old Frostbite. Now once you have Frostbite on an enemy, the next time you inflict that Frostbite, they are frozen instead. So that's why we forestall. The forestallment attack will hit, trigger the Ice Bolt, which applies Frostbite. Then once we're hit, we counterattack, and the counterattack will apply Frostbite again because it's going to trigger Ice Bolts again. And that second time is going to freeze. That's why the first enemy that walks up to Leton is going to get frozen. So we run Frosty Fortress. This is our primary defense. It gives you the 100% block, some extra flat armor and resistance, which means even if we get armor shred, we're still decently tanky. And it also just lowers the damage you take. By having low damage taken, we are going to work off Great Snow Mountain, which will allow us to gain SP really quickly, give us more flat armor and resistance. And the key mastery to that is Great Snow Plains. We have 15 ice masteries, I believe, in this setup, 15 or 16. And so every time we're attacked, as long as we take less than 5% of our HP of damage, which, considering how tanky this Leton setup is going to actually be pretty often, we will take, we'll reduce our action time by 5. And because an enemy attacking you usually means they're turned in, we're going to get quick grasp of the situation, which is going to lower action time another 5. And if anything comes up to hit us in melee range, as long as they do less than 25% of our HP, we also get our action time reduced by 10 on top of that. So pretty much anything running up to you that hits you for less than 5% of your life, you're going to recover 20 action time, which is ridiculous. You're actually going to be getting turns constantly. So, and then once you've got your turn, you just freeze something. All those enemies that are frozen, they get their turns. They are forced to stand by while they're frozen, so I think you actually don't get the quick grasp of the situation effect on that. But that's fine. A frozen enemy is an enemy that's not acting. So we are running Frozen Soul Reaper. You don't necessarily need this one. The main thing is Shatter on this. This is mostly if you want to deal some damage. You can potentially drop this Shatter and then take away Hysteria, and they'll free up a basic slot if you want to run like regular exercise, or let's see, what else could you run in the basic? Regular exercise, extreme speed would be another option. Yeah, I'd say those would be the main two you'd probably want to run. But Shatter's mostly if you just want to deal some damage, because if you got a couple enemies frozen, you might as well take advantage of it and just walk up and punch them and just get some extra damage in. You can actually kill quite a few enemies, especially the Mook type enemies. That's why we're running that. Ice Soldier is just for some flat stats. We gain extra ice speed at the start of our turn, which also helps to cover our high-end anti-freezing fluid effect. Ice Shield is just damage reduction. And then Frost Sword is what we need to make sure that we're triggering Frostbite at 100%. Which gets turned into freezing because of absolute zero. So if you're not interested in the counterattacks, because the counterattacks do increase your action time, you can always drop the counterattack. You won't be freezing from the forestallment into counterattack, but it will allow you to have turns quicker. So that's another thing you can potentially swap out in the support slot. Or if you drop the counterattack, you could then slot in the defense to support, which is flexibility. And then with the extra slot and support, you could run Twilight of Pain. Yeah, the Twilight of Pain. So it'll reduce your action time at the end of your turn for every 20% HP you're missing. Though your Leton shouldn't be taking too much damage, if he is taking some damage, this could be a good way to get your turns quick. And then once you're getting your turns quick, you're just freezing enemies more, much quicker. So you'll get things under control. And then once you have enough enemies frozen next to you, then Anne should be able to safely run up, heal you, and then get out. So that is the setup. I do enjoy this. It is a durable build. It is not a huge damage dealing build, but it is a self-sustaining tank that is able to freeze enemies quite thoroughly and keep things controlled. Back him up with long-range artillery type characters like Ray, Hazing, or of course Giselle. And if you pair up the synergies with Finding a Way Out, you will have a fantastic time, because Leton will just keep everything frozen and they will just be able to absolutely destroy everything next to him. So that's the build. Enjoy Leton. While not my favorite character in the story, he is one of the characters I spend the most time working on builds for, because he just has a lot of flexibility on what he can do. And he can actually be quite enjoyable, because a lot of characters can do damage. Not many characters can do CCing like 5 or 6 enemies at once while applying armor break and other debuffs. And that's just something that's almost entirely unique to Leton. So he is a special character, so treat him well.